Hello and welcome to Schedule C Part 2. Okay, please go to page 39 and either pull the page out or just look at it while we go through this short video. Alright, when you fill out a Schedule C, alright, you should put the name of the proprietor up there at the top. Now that's the name of the taxpayer, okay? So, John Q. Public or whoever it is, all right? You should put either the Social Security number or the employer identification number, whichever one applies, all right, at the top of Schedule C. The employer identification number would go in box D, all right? If the sole proprietor has a DBA, okay, like John Q. Public doing business as John's Roofing, all right, John's Roofing would go on line C, all right. Line E generally would be, the address that's on the front of the tax return. Okay, line F, all right, again, that depends. All right, most small business people are going to use the cash method of accounting. In the cash method of accounting, revenues are not recorded until they are received in cash, and expenses are not recorded until they are paid, okay? If you use the accrual method of accounting, accrual method says that revenues are recorded when they are earned, and expenses are recorded when they are incurred, all right, and the use of cash is immaterial, okay? Again, 90% of sole proprietors will probably use the cash method. All right, G, almost invariably you're going to mark X in that box that you materially participated. All right, in other words, you have a significant investment in the business. All right, if you started the business this year, make sure you check number H or letter H. All right, letter I and letter J, all right, are kind of important. All right, in the last video, I said that you cannot, give yourself a W-2 if you're a sole proprietor, but you can give your employees a W-2. That's if you have employees. Okay, a lot of people tend to pay under the table, all right, but they're also cognizant of the fact that they have to issue some forms. So what a lot of business owners do is they will issue a 1099 MISC, short for miscellaneous, to the people that work for them and treat them as independent contractors. All right, and that's what line I is referring to on Schedule C. It says, did you make any payments that would have forced you to file Form 1099? All right, and if your answer is yes, then on line J it says, did you or will you file the required forms 1099? All right, so if I is yes and J is no, that of course will open yourself up to an audit. All right, okay, the part 1 on the income part, all right, is where you would record all of your gross receipts and your sales, okay, and again, this depends upon if you're using the cash method or the accrual method. If you had any returns or if you gave any refunds back, all right, that would go on line 2, and the net amount, and then the net difference between those two would go on line 3. All right, the inventory, all right, which is recorded and calculated on page 2 of Schedule C. The cost of goods sold comes out to line 4, and then the gross profit is the difference between line 3 and line 4. If you had any other income that was directly attributable to the sole proprietorship, okay, for example, if you had a bank account and you had interest income, you might want to put it on that line. I would suggest you don't, though. All right, interest income should be recorded on the front of the 1040 on line 8B. The reason is because the biggest drawback about sole proprietors is that you are being taxed for federal income tax, for state and local income tax if you're in Indiana, and then you're also taxed for self-employment tax. All right, where on the self-employment tax, you are paying both the employees and the employer's share of the Social Security and Medicare taxes, commonly known as FICA. If you're an employee, they call it FICA. If you're self-employed, they call it SECA, S-E-C-A, but it's basically the same thing. I get people all the time that ask me, Rob, if I form a sole proprietorship, how much money should I put in a bank to set aside for taxes? And I tell them 1/3. And they're like, wow, that's a lot. And I went, yes, it is. All right, but between the federal, the state, the local taxes, and the SECA tax, all right, you're going to pay out roughly about 33% in taxes. So you don't want to add anything to the income part that you could put somewhere else on the return. In other words, things like interest income. All right, so on the expenses, all right, let me just go over a few of those with you real quick. All right, line 9, car and truck expenses. All right, in a later video, we'll talk about standard mileage for vehicles. You would put that amount on line 9. All right, if you have any contracted labor where you have to issue a 1099 MISC, that would go on line 11. All right, your tax depreciation goes on line 13 and should be automatically fed from Form 4562. Okay, so the depreciation on line 13 is not what you would have calculated in QuickBooks, for example. That's book depreciation. All right, in Chapter 7, we will discuss depreciation in depth. All right, line 15, if you had anything other than health insurance, okay, vehicle insurance, I mean, unless you put it on line 9, okay, all right, liability insurance, things like that, that would go on line 15. If you paid out an interest on a loan that was directly attributable to the Schedule C, you would put that on line 16. If you paid an accountant to do your taxes or you paid an attorney to get you set up, that would go on line 17. Your office expenses would go on line 18, but you would not put your office and the home expenses on line 18. That would be down towards the bottom of the page, and that would go on line 30. If you rented anything, if you rented vehicles, if you rented an office, if you rented equipment, that would go on line 20. All right, any supplies that you had other than what you had for cost of goods sold would go on line 22. If you paid any taxes or any licenses and permits, that would go on line 23. Line 23 would also include payroll taxes if you have employees. All right, line 24, all right, that's travel, meals, and entertainment. We'll be talking about that in another video, and that is discussed in Chapter 3. Utilities is self-explanatory. Again, line 26 is the gross wages that you paid all of your employees. All right, and again, remember, you cannot pay yourself a paycheck. All right, I've had clients who did that, and I just tell them, okay, you just paid for something you didn't need to. All right, so you cannot give yourself a W-2. Line 27A is for all the other expenses that you can't put on lines 8 through 26. All right, so you be prepared to attach a summary sheet to your return, whether paper or electronic. Okay, and basically that is all of your other expenses summarized, all right, into line 27A. All right, if you have a office in the home deduction, okay, that will be on line 30. We'll discuss that in a later video. And your net profit or loss would go on line 31 of Schedule C. And then if you go back and you look at your 1040, you will see that the income will pass through to line 12 of your 1040.